You already know. I start off all these episodes,
Hmm.
and my first question that I'm gonna ask is, who do you think you are?
Okay. I think that I am an artist. I mean, simple and plain, and I say that and that sounds like the I don't know easy answer, but I've always seen myself as an artist, and I consistently thought that. You know, I feel like even through the phases in like school where like I was getting into sports and stuff, never seen a future where I wasn't being an artist. So
Damn,
you know, I've always that's been my answer since
forever.
yeah since I can remember. So
It's crazy. I never. I'm thinking back. I don't think I ever gave that answer to anybody growing up.
interesting.
Actually never thought I would be an
Right.
artist.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm finding a lot of. It's so crazy that you say that. Because I'm finding now that in like when I older. Okay, since that's always been my answer.
Right.
When I was younger, a lot of people said that around teenage, like middle to teenage, like middle years, like you know, like teenager, like middle school to like mid high school,
Right.
the answer started changing to more like career based stuff.
Mm,
Even people that I grew up whose answer was that it ended up changing. And now that I am older, like you know, late 20s or whatever, I'm
to my
noticing.
older.
But I've known what I wanted to do for a long time, so
Right.
it feels different.
Okay.
Like you know what I'm saying? That's not like 10 years of being an artist. That's like 20 years of being an artist.
Mm.
Yeah, it's 26, but it's I've
You
been
know, since a
solid,
kid,
right?
kid.
So it's
That's
never
crazy.
changed. And so, what I've noticed is that people who play sports that got not even sports, but I'm gonna say sports because it's specifically sports, and because I'm in North Carolina, I'll say basketball. People that
Right.
I've known that took sports and specifically basketball very seriously after they get out of sports or um, like athletics, they dive down a creative field and they take that same type of drive that it
Mm.
requires to be successful in any sport and
Right.
apply it to their creative outlet.
Mm.
And then now a lot of the successful artists I see in this stage of my career have been people who come from sports based backgrounds.
Yeah, I never thought about that. It does give you a foundation though of discipline, of teamwork,
Mm-hmm.
um, know-how, things of that nature to propel yourself further. I never made that connection though.
Yeah, my roommate in college was all my friends are athletes.
Mm.
I was always the artist, you know what I'm saying? But all of my friends are athletes. All of my roommate was a collegiate basketball player. My other roommate um, was a collegiate track runner. So
Mm.
I'm always around sports players. All of my best friends growing up were basketball players or wanted to
Right.
be basketball players. So you know, so I was always around it, and I kind of was like their exposure to.
To
Wait,
the
what Dre
artist
said? He
world.
said, I feel like he said sports and music are so synonymous. Cause I want, cause they want to be, cause I want to be, cause we want to be them.
Yep,
They
and they
want
want
to
to
be
be us.
us. Like
Yeah.
yeah, so I've always been around. Cause I love basketball, but like I'm short, bro. And
Look,
I
Muggsy Bogues made it to the league, bro.
nah,
He said,
nah, cause
nah.
I like the little post. I told you Kevin Garnett is my favorite. You
True.
know? So I mean I can't pump fake everybody to death. You feel me?
This is true. This
You
is
know?
true. Were your parents artists?
That's a good question, but no. Well, no, my dad was an athlete.
Okay.
Yeah, so my dad was a baseball player. Well, he made it collegiate and then decided that he wanted to go down a route for security to build a family.
Okay.
And that's where I come in. But his passion was baseball.
Mm.
And then my mom is an accountant. She was pretty successful black accountant in Fayetteville. Got to the highest position in PwC's corporate ladder.
Okay.
Accountant to a black woman to this day right now.
Wow.
But she creates my family. Like my mom's side of the family do like you know they crochet. You know
Okay.
so she makes like these blankets that are like portrait blankets,
Yeah.
keepsakes and heirlooms and stuff. So and then you know my uncles they have some comic book and comic like fan art hobby type. Nobody professionally
Right.
is an artist though. I don't know.
So how did you roll into a professional artist?
I just knew what I wanted to do and never let it ever stop. So like as I gained information
Mm.
in the process, so like first is like I want to be an artist. Okay, what does that mean? Well, first I gotta learn how to draw. Learn how to draw. Oh, you're pretty good. Here you want? I'll give you $5, $10 to draw a picture of me. You talking about elementary school?
Right.
You know, that's something like, what, $5, $10.
Right. Yeah, that's a lot of candy.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So I'm getting to it. I always had an entrepreneur mindset, and I don't like asking people for money. Don't like asking my parents for money or nothing like that.
Even as a kid.
Yeah,
Dang, I wish I'd have had that.
I don't like the idea of asking people for stuff. It made me feel very vulnerable.
Like I get it now, but I'm thinking as 10-year-old, right? I heck yeah, I'm asking.
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I mean?
no.
Like I'm wondering, damn, like what my life would have been like now had I had that mindset of an entrepreneur, not wanting to ask, my parents or grandparents or whoever for money at the time, because I would bum money off of, like, so my mom, she won't give me no extra money to go get no ice cream and Fruitopias when they came out. Fruitopia changed my life, by the way. But I would just go around and ask my friends at lunch, like, yo, let me get a quarter, yo.
Word.
You know what I'm saying? Yo, let me get, oh, you got 10 cents? I bet. You got 15? All right. And then I get enough, give me an ice cream, and I'm good. I never in my mind, and I'm going all the way back, never in my mind was like, yo, why don't you just sell something?
That's funny. Yeah, not me. I didn't put the idea in my head. So
Yeah, where did that idea come
right,
from?
yeah. So I'm about to say I'm not like some super like just to kind of clarify, like it wasn't just like boom.
Right.
Boom. A lot of the stuff that's happening even to this day, like it kind of found me, like in a way of like I drew all the time. I was always working on my craft, and from moving from Virginia going to North Carolina, I feel like the school systems were a little behind in North Carolina, and so especially because they didn't have no record of like what I knew, only the tests they were putting in front of me. I would get past a lot of stuff faster, and in my free time, I would have a lot of free time, and if talking, you get in trouble. So
right.
a lot of time to pass that time and just draw, write
working
music.
early.
Yeah, just it was fun. It's a hobby. It was like it's work because it's work now because it's a profession, but I just always loved it. That's why I wanted to do it as a kid. I didn't think about making money as a kid. I was thinking about what I just really like to do, and I always did it. I was the only child for a little while, for 6 years. Okay. So my parents are 30, basically 30 years older than me.
Okay.
So all of their friends, they didn't even have kids. So I was usually by myself a lot as a child.
Right.
The way that they pacified me was like putting me in front of a piece of paper with pencil or crayon, and I just entertained myself, And eventually it got good. You do anything long enough,
you get good at it.
You're gonna get good,
Most people, well, some people anyway.
Yeah.
I know. Bro, I promise you, I don't know if he gonna see this or not, so I ain't gonna say his name. I ain't even gonna say exactly what he do.
I feel you.
But he been doing it for a long time. And I promise you it sound like a 7th grader, bro.
I feel you.
That's just starting out.
I feel you. Well, and shoot, my critique on art, man, I'm kind of scared to even say how I feel about this particularly, but I'll say it like this. It depends on what, especially in art, I think it's subjective to what art means to the artist to see how fast they progress, because there's definitely technical skills with art, like you want to know proportion, you want to know like color theory, you want to know, but like if you don't care about that stuff and you still want validation for your art to be art, then I mean there's room for it in the art sphere, because what's art? But then a part of it goes to are you creating intentionally, like, all right, I guess the best way I can say this like this, and I'm sure that you can relate to this as a writer. What part of the art that you're creating is a limitation to your skill set versus the intention of making it that way? If I can draw something super realistic, but then I decide to draw something simple, it means more than I drew something very complex but in a simple way because I don't know how to communicate the complexity. You know what I'm
Got
saying?
you. Okay, that makes sense.
You know what I'm saying?
That makes sense.
He might, if he never was taught or never decided to care about proportions, or
Right.
then you're
Then
not gonna
he
see
ain't
it.
gonna have it. Yeah.
You're not gonna know how to do it. You know.
That's deep though, cause and I'm judging. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like that makes a ton of sense because if somebody doesn't even have that want or they never were exposed to that want to begin with, then they wouldn't have it. You know what I'm saying? And what they do is just what they do. That's crazy.
But you had said something to me earlier. We talked about being somebody's favorite, right?
Right.
And I think that that's kind of where art is. Like in the some people want art to be simple. I had a conversation with somebody earlier today, actually, and they were saying, I was showing them my portfolio. They're like, I like it, but your style is like, and they were trying not to offend me. Your style's a little messy. I was like, yeah, I don't express myself neatly.
Right.
Like, I feel like a lot of the world requires me to like care about that already.
Yeah.
So when I'm creating,
Like, nah, I want to be outside the line.
whatever
Yeah.
I want to do, but I can.
Right.
It's just, but putting myself in that box make me feel like now I'm doing a service, which is cool. But my art is gonna be
You want it to be what's flowing out of you
You know,
versus it being constrained.
100%.
Yeah, I think like you were saying about the favorite thing, that's the best place to be for me as anything, an entertainer, an artist, a ball player, whatever. Like, yeah, when you got numbers, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's certain things you just can't refute.
Right.
You know, Jordan went to 6 finals,
Right.
won 6 finals, has 6 finals MVPs, and
Right.
never played in a game 7.
Like, come on, bro.
Like, I don't even know what we talking about.
Yeah.
But somebody be like, yo, LeBron's my favorite player. And then they start spouting out stuff that he did that nobody else ever did. And you can't, it's hard to argue with that as someone's favorite because once you're someone's favorite, you're their favorite. And if you get enough people to say that you're their favorite, then you're the best.
That's actually, I've never even considered that because I mean, if it's arguable, then it's partly true. If somebody can stand by it enough to the point where they can defend you publicly, regardless of how somebody else feels about that person's opinion, it's opinion enough to be talked about as a worthy opinion. Because if somebody comes up to me and says Joe Blow is the best artist and I never heard of him, and not that I know everything,
Right? You'd be like,
but I'm like, not in my
right,
like not in my world, like you know.
I don't even know this dude.
Yeah, like
right.
oh, word, that's cool. Who, you know what I'm saying? It won't even come up in conversation. But if you bring up somebody and I gotta refute, like I gotta be like, it's not. I mean, they at least worthy enough for me to argue back with you. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like I never thought about it like that. But yeah, but I was only bringing it full circle. Exactly what you were saying about like Jordan, right? There's certain stuff that you can't refute. It works similarly in the art thing too. So like, if I go to another artist that is of the same education, whether it's self-learned or they learn from a teacher or a professor or instructor, the knowledge is the same across the board. So if I go shading, lighting, proportion, and you can do that accurately, I gotta say you're a good artist, regardless of your style. And then if you decide you want to go outside of that and don't follow none of that stuff, I still gotta be like, hey, you know your stuff.
Yeah.
Like so, that's you. Like you choosing that. But if I go to somebody, I'm like, can you show me a shadow accurately to the light shining on this person? Can you do that? And they can't do that. To me, you lost credibility because like on paper, I asked you to communicate something visually, and then you couldn't do it. Not that you decided not to do it.
Right, you
couldn't do it. So then it's like, there is levels.
Right.
But, I try to stay because when you start getting...
People feelings start getting touched.
Yeah, you start talking about stuff and, people... so art...
Who can critique your work that you actually care about their opinion?
Me? Oh, anybody that I'm not crazy. Like, please, I don't mean like don't hurt my feelings. But I had. Well, this is why I say the the most work. I'm not used to receiving critiques from my work because I'm, for the most part, I'm a hired artist. I'm an artist for hire, so I'm my clients critique my work really heavy when I'm working for somebody because they want me to create something for them.
Right.
And that's fine, you know, because you pay me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But like when I started doing public pieces, like when we did the mural downtown, Fayetteville, the Black Lives Matter mural downtown, I received a lot of critiques on the aesthetic of the lettering from like the public, from people who never knew me, which was, I thought I would care more.
Right, but you did.
I didn't, because I feel like the conversation is more important than the answer. The fact that you talking about what I created means that I impacted.
Right.
That's cool. And from that perspective, anybody could critique my work. In fact, I welcome it.
Right.
Just critique it openly and tell somebody. If you hate it, tell somebody else you hate it. You know, keep it to yourself. You know what I'm saying? I think the point of art is low key to be talked about, and I would love people to critique my artwork. But if they want to critique me on something like, if you gonna critique me, and not like.
Right. It don't need to be no BS.
Yeah.
Like know what you're talking about when you're talking about it.
I don't say I don't like it because I don't like it. Like, like if you don't like it, tell me why you don't like it and give me so we can talk about it. Cause I don't care if you like it, but the conversation is more more important than.
So when they were critiquing the lettering, like did that hold weight with you as far as like actually what they were saying about the lettering? Because in my mind, when you say that, and I haven't seen the mural that you're speaking of, but in my mind, I'm like, it's a mural for Black Lives Matter.
Right.
Now, if you're critiquing whether or not you feel it should be up there, that's one thing. But if you're critiquing what letters were placed, like
that's how I felt about it. However, I thought about it for a while because I was like, you know, it kind of made me feel a little way because I was like, well, then I am serving a public space. Maybe I should consider things like that more. But honestly, the type of pressure that we was feeling out there, like I think it's kind of hard to. Most people paint to free their mind. And like it's a very meditative thing. That piece was more than just like let's make something pretty,
right?
You know, so like a lot of it came with it. We received such a wide range of reactions. Some people came and dropped food off to us and showed us some of the best acts of love, and then we had some people spit on it, try to destroy it. All of these things. So like, you know, creating under that type of pressure where it's not in your head and like people can live critique what you're doing and you get a wide range of emotions, it affects the technical aspects of making it. So, but I've also received that critique from professors and mentors. Like I'm a freehand type. I don't, you know, I've been drawing for a long time and I just trust myself, and where I'm wrong on balances, I fix it like asymmetrically versus symmetrically, so I'm not as clean cut, but it's balanced. You feel it, you get what I'm communicating, and that's fine for me. So I know how to do it.
I just do it the way that I like doing it.
You know what I'm saying? So critiques on it's fine.
Word. And staying on that, so like there's a lot of people who are behind Black Lives Matter movement. There's a lot of people who are not completely. Then there's also a group of people who feel like, yeah, I'm behind Black Lives Matter in the sense of Black lives actually matter, but then the actual movement of having that be a phrase, some people that I know feel like it's fugazi.
Propaganda.
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
Great question. Great question, and I feel like I have a little insight on this, but I don't want to attack my city, so I'm gonna be careful with how I phrase this. Okay. We were commissioned by the city of Fayetteville to lead, me and a guy named Colin Strother. We were commissioned by the city of Fayetteville, so they paid us to do it, to lead a painting for Black Lives Matter, and to speak on it. I'm gonna tell you why this is crazy is because they showed us something like an idea of what they were thinking of doing. We read that, objective to get it done. It was design was originally crafted and helped by Colin Stroth, another person I was with.
Right.
But we had to change the lettering, the wording up to from Black Lives Matter to Black Lives Do Matter for the reason of propaganda and the city's association with a movement that was political. They wanted to make a statement without attaching themselves to the propaganda that was Black Lives Matter.
Gotcha.
Right? So it was Black Lives Do Matter. Right? Which is fair. I think the movement's fair. However, I feel like my role as an artist is to create art that causes the conversation that makes movement. I don't want to be so involved with politics to where they're looking at me for answers. I just want to be the person that keeps the conversation going so that way the people with answers can show up to people who are interested in people needing the answers. So as long as the art is, is making us have these conversations, I feel like I'm doing my job as an artist, and that's kind of where I want to position myself in that frame. There is a lot going on in the movement. There's things that I be so focused on how I feel about stuff and putting it through my creations that I kind of I'm kind of removed from the specific, like the specific goals of each political party. Or I have beliefs, and whatever project I'm behind, I'm a represent it at the moment that I represent it. The stuff evolves, changes. So I try to keep away from boxes of identification, especially when it comes to something as big as Black rights and freedom, because to me it's pretty simple.
Pretty much.
We've been working. Our lives matter. Our Black lives do matter. Black lives matter. But I don't want to attach myself to a party that's or something that's that has something, because I don't know. I don't feel like I'm aware enough. Of what the
all the minutia.
The detail stuff. But it's simple for me. Stop killing Black men. Stop killing Black women. Give credit to Black people, and make sure that we're properly represented in entertainment, especially because we're creating the entertainment.
True.
That's me. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know.
Do you ever feel like your art isn't enough? And the reason I ask that is because I once had the thought and told somebody, I was like, sometimes it sucks being a writer because all I have to give is words. Do you ever feel like your art, especially when it comes to things like, whether it's Black Lives Matter or whether it's some sort of societal issue, or whether somebody commissions you to do something and it's very personal to them, do you ever feel like, man, this ain't enough? I should be doing something else, or I could be doing something else, or I need to layer something else on top of my art? Do you ever have that emotion, that feeling, that thought?
Every time I'm about to step into a new project. I think the thing that leads my next creation is that the last thing wasn't enough for me. Wow. So I'll do whatever I feel is enough until it's done, and then it's nope, the next thing. That was actually one of the critiques. That's one of the critiques that hit me the most about what we did. Because somebody was like, it's just art, what's that going to do? And at first I thought about it, but even the testament of you being a writer, man, I think our work as creatives are not seen in an immediate reaction to what we create. I think our impact is seen generationally. So,
wow.
I feel like the people I affected the most with my art and music even are people that found my stuff when they were younger, 14, 15, when they're going through something that I wrote about when I was 14, 15. And then now, years later, we still connected. But what we connected about back then has shaped them to be the human beings that they are now. And they're impacting the world in a positive manner based off of things that
was said decades ago.
You know what I'm saying? So I wouldn't, if and this is to any creator, if a creator feels like their stuff is not as impactful, that we just haven't you haven't yet seen your impact plus time.
Yeah.
Like it's going to happen for us, but it always happens. We're visionary, so we see stuff ahead
Right.
of the curve. I think the biggest problem with societal change and reaction to art is that our momentum isn't big enough.
Explain that.
Metaphysically explaining it, I'll say darkness is has numbers on their side, and I feel like light is like it's a few. And the reason why that's a problem is because I feel like I know I'm speaking to a poet, so you gonna
Yeah, we here.
I feel like the gray between the light and the dark, and I don't mean that by like a complexion thing. I mean
Right.
by like literally like positive, negative.
Yep.
People that sit in the neutral of that, it's like they're influenced by momentum and motion. And what I notice is that the light is deep, impactful, and potent,
Right.
but the darkness is frequent, top of mind distractions. I feel like we're not going to see a big impact as artists until we have a system that allows us to be as constant as negativity is. I feel like negativity works hard at being in your face because they need attention to thrive. And I feel like we on the side of like trying to bring light and positivity in the world, people that are trying to make positive changes,
Right.
we're not as consistent at being in the face of people. And it keeps us from being able to influence the masses, which are the kind of the neutrals who just experience information
Right.
as it comes, and they're constantly being influenced, but they're not self-aware enough to know that what they're consuming is affecting their life, essentially.
Why? That's deep. Why? So why is it that way, right? Why is the dark so distracting, so top of mind, so much faster to be in front of people than the people who have the passion to be the light, the the positivity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because the light's here, the dark's here, and we got the neutral people here, and we're both fighting for their attention to push them one way or the other, or a tug of war, really.
Yeah.
Why is the dark winning?
Okay. Since we deep, we in it.
We in
Since
it.
we in it. I do have a hypothesis on why that's like a thing, and I think it's because from my experience, I feel like people who are positive or more in touch with the spiritual side of themselves in a positive manner, we like to deny our nature a lot. And the reason why that's not good is because the neutral is strictly responding to their nature. For example, if we're going in this idea of darkness, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it,
Right.
but like we talked about this earlier, like pastors like pussy too. Like,
Right.
that's something that people wouldn't want to hear on the light side most of the time. But
True.
it's a thing that's important because
They do.
right? But if you don't talk about it, you start associating those types of topics and ideas
With the
with the dark. And now the neutral is sitting here like, well, if sex is bad and I love sex, well then I'm obviously on this side, right? And so they start attaching themselves to these ideologies where that feel more comfortable to talk about it. I feel like that's why the role of the artist, I feel like the role of the poets, the role of the comedians are important, that we talk about taboo subjects so people can find their identification in a way that allows them to fit in a positive manner versus being manipulated to maneuver themselves in a negative manner because of their nature.
It's crazy. So I never thought about all of that. But I'm always thinking about
Right,
all of that.
right.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Um, all right. So right now the dark is winning,
Hmm.
and you have a hypothesis of why you think the dark is winning, which actually makes sense to me, right? So now we're in this culture, this council culture,
Hmm.
and that's a big buzzword and all that good stuff. Um, how how do we beat cancel culture without allowing people to do and say things, for lack of a better term, out of pocket
Right. Okay.
more often than they should? Because, like, for instance, you got Dave Chappelle, right?
Right. Hmm.
No matter how people feel about Dave Chappelle, some people love him, some people hate him, some people are like, he's funny as hell, but come on, man, don't say that.
Right.
You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Like, he's all over the place, with a lot of different people, that
Right.
is, right? And so he's kind of being canceled. It's weird. He's
Yeah,
being canceled, but he's not at the same time.
because you can't cancel. Okay, when you're canceling somebody off of trivial topics, then you can cancel them. Like if it's disputes against like a people to people thing, I don't think you can cancel Dave Chappelle because the topics he talk about is not specifically directed at one group of people, person, or topic.
But a lot of people would disagree with that. The trans community would disagree with that.
Well, yeah, but I feel like, and this is my, I grew up on Dave Chappelle,
Right.
and I can understand the sensitivity of it. I'm not, I don't feel connected to the trans community in any way, but I do feel like he had skits like the racial draft. You know what I'm saying? Where he's talking about like
He did have the racial draft.
yeah, so like in a time where like that was funny. Now if we did a skit on racial draft, like
It's insensitive.
it's insensitive, and I feel like a part of insensitivity in this day and age is a part of feeding the elephant in the room.
Mm.
The more that we're insensitive, the more that we ignore the fact there's a huge, like, I feel like a big part of the comedian or jester in any like societal like construct was to make it comfortable to talk about things that are hard to talk about.
Right.
Um, okay, I'll put it like this. I was just having this conversation with my girl the other day, and I was telling her, I was like, it's so funny to me, like it was a trend in movies to see like white people in do rags and like jerseys and chains in
Right.
movies, and it was funny, right? Now that happens, and I get it because culture appropriation and all those things
Yeah.
are true, but it's always been happening, and it's weird now that we like really keeps the conversations from being able to have, and it turns more into conflicts that act out into physical violence or
Right.
things like that. I feel like if we're inside of a society, it's important that we have room for conversation, and if we disagree with somebody or whatever, just disassociate yourself with those people, but not talking about it doesn't further,
True.
not being able to talk about them doesn't further the progression of the problem, and I feel like right now we have a lot of tension because we're ignoring stuff and we don't have anybody to really ease it. I think Dave Chappelle has been easing it. I think maybe it's not my place to like have an opinion on these things. So I'm just gonna say I don't feel like as creators it's our role to necessarily give a viewpoint
Right.
or like or our personal perspective. I think our responsibility is bigger than ourselves.
Right.
However, I don't think we should lose our opinion either. So
And see, that's the hard part,
right,
because if you're watching everything you say and how you say it, and then not saying or doing certain things strictly only because you're gonna get canceled, or
right,
there's a group of people or groups of people that aren't going to like said thing or
right,
whatever, then I think I feel like, and I've had these conversations with people about that, and it's like, yo, I feel like we're towing this line that's like one of the thinnest lines there is, where it's like, okay, I get how this thing that's said could be offensive, right? But what if that person never says that thing, but they always still think that thing and live their life that particular way? You don't know how to deal with them. You don't know where they stand with anything. Everything's fake, for real.
Yep.
And the mask, which we all have a mask in some sense or have had a mask, then that mask is permanent.
Yep. Oh, dang. I've never thought about that. Yeah.
That mask is permanent. And so I know for me, like, and I know I brought up Dave Chappelle and, the trans community, like, I have trans friends. 5 years ago, I had a trans friend.
Right. Okay.
10 years ago, I was completely 100% transphobic.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so I remember I used to always tell one of my friends that's trans, like, yo, like, I don't agree with your lifestyle. And she would tell me, like, yo, look, you don't have to agree with my lifestyle. Like, it's not your lifestyle, and it's not even a lifestyle. This is my life.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so I was able to then have conversations and start understanding things that, in my opinion, we would have never been able to talk about if I always had to watch what I said.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Like, I feel like, comedians make those conversations easier. I think representation on television makes it easier, but not representation by just putting somebody in a role, like, so it can be seen.
Right.
The role has got to challenge and reflect the questions, topics, and ideas that society is currently having. So that way, a viewer that may connect with this person and then is in the same room with a viewer that might connect with another person, and after watching it, be like, hey, after watching this movie, it makes me wonder, like, how do you maneuver through life as a trans person? And now we having a conversation about it versus, like, me holding my biases in and never ever expressing it so it can be challenged, so I can think past my bias.
Right.
I feel like, if I'm being honest, I felt like I had a transphobia earlier in my life, but it was more of a taught thing. It was more of how everybody around me, reacting. But now that I'm in a position of, like, able to hold my own constructs of thought, I don't feel like it's even, like, appropriate for me to judge anybody's ideas of anything if it doesn't negatively affect society. If you're not imposing your will or idea on anybody else, what you think has nothing to do with it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Or what you feel has nothing to do. I have my own beliefs and my own system that I, as a human being, have control over. And also, if your beliefs don't, even sometimes I've had some really good conversations with people who directly oppose my beliefs.
Right.
And we end up becoming friends. Now, we might not even settle in the middle. We may not even compromise on a belief.
But we had a conversation. And now we understand each other. At least we know each other's opinions. Yeah, it's wild, man. Like, just kind of navigating, especially with me. Like, I'm almost 40. I'm 38, and so I remember growing up in the 90s where anything goes. You could say whatever to whoever, however, you know what I'm saying? It was whatever. And so now where we're at in the world, and things are a whole lot different. And, like, I ain't gonna lie, like, as us sitting here as artists, like, I've thought about it before, because, people would be like, oh man, you're gonna be famous and this and that and the other. And I'm like, I don't want to be famous. I'm like, I just want the bread. But then as I start looking at what I'm doing and how I'm doing it, if I get the type of money that I'm thinking I'm gonna get, it's possible I might become famous, right? But part of the reason I don't want to become famous is because I don't want to get canceled.
Right. That's big.
Because I'm sitting here like, yo, like, I'm thinking about some of the things that I've written in poems that have been in shows, that if I were famous, I might have actually already been canceled.
Interesting.
But right now, you know what I'm saying? Don't nobody know who I am, so I can say whatever I want to say, however I want to say it, and that's it. But I'm like, man, like, does that change when sponsors come on? Does that change when, you know what I'm saying, da-da-da-da? Like, do you have things or clients, because you get booked for your services for what you do? Do you have clients that say, hey, look, I like what you do and how you do it, but I don't want you to do it like this for this particular thing?
Yeah, that happens a lot more than none. Which is why I'm actually about to step away from client work because a part of me as an artist has like I feel like neutered, like
Mm,
in a sense of like even if I make a decision for myself, I'm questioning, and it's weird because I made a decision for myself. Like a
right.
part of me feel like I'm like my life is being dulled every time I do something strictly for how another person thinks about it.
Mm,
Like because it makes me start wondering. Initially, I'm creating a habit of do something for somebody else's approval and get rewarded financially. And finances are necessary for this life that I'm living.
mm-hmm.
So now my life is based on the opinion of another person. And it's affecting the way that I'm creating. Like
Right.
I've noticed my art change. I noticed that my confidence in my own opinion had not now had been defiled a little bit. You know, like
Mm,
I'm like, is it good? Like, do like is it am I doing it right? And I'm like, it's art though.
yeah.
Okay, true. But there is, like I was talking about before, they even go down that mental thing where like, well, you can judge it, you can, but yeah, it can be judged. But then it's
Right.
like, at what point, like, I'm getting to a point now where your vibe attract your tribe, and I mean that in all ways. So like, if I feel like doing art this way, even though I can do it another way, people that don't like it, please tell people you don't like it, so the people that do like it can find it. You
Right.
know what I'm saying?
I need to start telling people that I gotta use that.
Like if you don't like it, tell somebody you don't like it. You might run into somebody who disagrees with you, and that's the ones that I'm trying to reach. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So conversations, man. Let's talk about art more. Let's have opinions. And you hate me publicly. You let people know you hate
You gonna hate me publicly, yo. Tell somebody else you hate me.
yeah.
Dang. And so many people, and I rarely use the term haters.
Mm-hmm.
Um, one, because I don't have many at all that I know of,
Right.
and if they are out there, then
They're not telling me.
right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I know a lot of people who are fueled by haters, or they're
Mm-hmm.
looking for their haters, or you know what I'm saying, things of that nature. And I was always like, man, like, why do people, why do people need that negativity? But when you put it that way,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, yo, if you hate me, tell somebody you hate me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yo, like you're basically just turning negativity on its head instead of transmuting it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like some people transmute it, they take that energy, that negative energy, and then it reaches them, and then they turn that into a positive for themselves.
I got you.
But you're just saying, oh, it's not. I don't even need to pair it with me. Just flip it over and tell somebody else.
Bro,
That's
yeah,
different, bro.
you're so cool, man. Yeah, no, thank you, man. Thank you. Now, I would say this, man. For a long time in my career, and I'm gonna say this because like I felt like when I was approaching music like a sport,
Mm,
back when like there wasn't a lot of independent artists,
right.
and the music game was controlled by labels like directly, and it might still be like that, but I mean like to
It's
the point,
changing though.
yeah, it's different now. You can be independent. It's
Yeah.
possible, and if it's possible, then it can be done. So,
Right.
but before it didn't feel like it was possible.
Yeah.
During those times, I was very competitive, and haters fueled me um, to create more.
Mm,
What I've noticed though, as I matured and I started valuing my work more on impact, the things that impacted people deeper were the things that were created in a mindset that wasn't based in competition,
mm,
self glorification, or anything like negative. All of the deepest impact, all of the like people I've affected in their soul with something I created has always been when I created out of a mindset of hope, abundance, equality, justice, and self awareness. Every
mm,
time I created from those mindsets, I've always seen more success.
Right.
For what I call success, which is like life changing, uh, you know, eureka moments for like
Yeah.
for a listener. You know, like when somebody catches something, they're like boom, and you see their
A
thoughts.
light bulb go off. Yeah.
That feeling is the best feeling for me. That's
Yeah.
why you're a poet, so if I drop a bar and it's like
Right.
and they catch it and they understand the reference, or I like even when it takes a while for them to catch it.
Years.
Yeah, yeah, you know what I'm saying.
I keep one eye open like CBS. It took me forever before Jigga Man first album, bro.
I didn't even heard that line. Oh wow.
Yo, he said it on Reasonable Doubt. He said, yo, I keep one eye open like CBS. And as many times I had heard the album, first of all, I didn't give it its just due for a long, long time.
I'm still like that. You just put me on, bro. Because everybody keeps telling me, bro, you need to listen to Reasonable Doubt. And I'm just like, the sound of it, I'm just not hip to
He
the.
talking, bro.
What?
He talking. It took me, I mean, I kept going back to it, And it wasn't probably till after he made the Black album, probably, where I finally, like, heard, like, that. And I'm just like, so I'm like, all right, what other gems am I missing
Yeah.
in this joint? You know what I'm saying? Like, so sometimes it does take a long time, but to your point, that is that moment where a light bulb goes off for somebody, or somebody says, yo, like, this changed my life, or this saved my life, or this gave me a different perspective than what I've had before. Because I know even, shoot, we've been sitting here talking just while we've been in this room, not even talking about what we talked about outside the room, like things that you've said that I've never heard before, things that you've said that I've never thought of before.
Same, bro.
And on, having this podcast and sitting across from people, and I swear, I promise you, I'm gonna go back and just rethink for real. But I feel like every time I've sat down with somebody, there's been at least one thing, at least, that I've never heard before, never thought before, or didn't think about in that particular perspective.
Word.
And so that in itself lends, like, that's that light though.
Right. And I was just about
That's
to,
that light.
so I'm about to follow up as a response to what you were saying. It's like that's how the light moves. And I hope I'm not like talking too coded for our audience or nothing, because I'm just trying to.
If you are, they can turn it off, or they can listen and get a different perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like in general, I feel like like again, the light hits deep, and it does that. What you was talking about, you asked a question earlier. You said why is that, like, what's keeping us from winning? I think honestly, and this is the saddest part about it, which is why like it's always the number is few, is because it's just really a lot harder to pay attention. I feel like people don't want to put in the effort that it takes to pay. It's because you have to pay it. Attention is something that you have to pay. You can't like it doesn't. You don't relax attention. You pay attention. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like people don't like the mental effort that it requires to like pay attention, at least until it becomes a habit.
Right.
Like again, when you say keep one eye open, see, when I hear words now, I already hear pictures because I've got my brain used to like doing those things. Like I'm sure you hear or like you might hear a word, and then all of a sudden the first time you hear a word, especially in English, because there's a lot of words like this that mean something else. Right. And then like in the context of the conversation, you might hear it, but then your brain give you a visual, or you might get a bloop of another thing, and then it's like, oh, I can use that.
Word association, thought association, action association. Yeah, that's a lot of how I write.
Words.
Yeah, because it makes sense. You know what I'm saying? And when we was talking about it a couple of days ago with somebody, I was like, I don't even know how people who aren't well-rounded listen to rap music, right? I was like, because when you talk about the metaphors, the similes, the juxtapositions, all the things that rappers are, like really good rappers are skilled at. Like, if you don't know about basketball, that's 30% of rap music from, at least the rappers that we rock with. That's 30% of what the references are coming from that. So how are you even rocking with the music? So then I was like, dang, I'm like, is that why a lot of the music has been dumbed down?
I think so.
Because there's more dark than light, and because there's more dark than light, the neutral are sucking those over, and so now you ain't gotta listen to the words. It can be mumble rap, or it can be a hot ass beat, and ain't nothing wrong with that. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But it could be a hot beat, but it ain't really saying too much because that's where the attention is. That's where the bigger crowd is. And I was just like, dang, like that's crazy.
That's where more people are paying their attention. You see what I'm saying? Like we look at attention as a currency, right? And you pay attention, right? People are paying their attention to things that gratify them instantly. This is the reason why Instagram is a great platform. It attracts to the visual aspect of the mind. I think it does. Personally, I think it does some cool things for education, but I think it does some bad things for the consumer consuming art because we talked about this earlier actually. But I think Instagram being a place where it is so visually, you start devaluing the ability to create visuals,
Right.
Because it's so
Easy to do it.
Yeah, I can just pick up my phone and find an artist that and that sounds crazy because like that sounds disrespectful to artists, but it's true. Like I can literally just open my phone up, type, I want to see some portraiture today, portraiture art. Oh, this is cool. These paintings. I want to see portraiture drawings, and then all these things are gonna pop
right up.
And now it's like if I was somebody who connected really, which by the way, this is not even how you really connect with art, but if I found some art on the internet that I thought was really nice, I know my mom even did this the other day, and I told her that she shouldn't do it. She found a picture on Facebook that she really liked, and instead of buying the print from the artist, she just got it printed out and then hung it up and was like, I just really liked it, and so I just started printing it out, getting friend. I'm like, yeah, but you could have supported the artist.
Could have supported the artist,
and because now you basically bootleg their shit,
right?
But also to the artist point, you allow your work to be able to be bootlegged. You know what I'm saying? So like, I get it. It's because again, you're trading the value. Okay, value can be paid in multiple ways: currency or in attention. So you traded the value in
of
exchange
attention.
for attention. You see what I'm saying? And people are more easily able to give themselves or pay attention to one, things that are free, and two, things that appeal to their visual, right? That's why you're going to get so many likes. That's why women are going to get hella likes when they show skin versus when they're like not, because it's like, oh, boom, like you caught my attention.
Yep.
Now that you got my attention, I'm here.
Yep.
I could have been paying that attention somewhere else though. My attention gonna be men too. Like men, like especially men models, you know what I'm saying? They boom, flexing muscle,
right?
Something like that. It's gonna catch your attention. I got them. As soon as I look and I see it, boom. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's a comment, it's attention.
That's crazy. And I'm sitting here like, man, I'm like, yo, there's so many things that I was kind of going back and forth with in my head just about my artistic journey that I didn't know what the right answer was. I didn't know what the right choice was. And there's so many things that I decided to do or not to do that I'm glad I made those decisions. Like, for instance, like I've had people approach me about having other people perform my poetry at their poetry shows, right? Or not even, sometimes it wasn't even a poetry show, it was just some type of event where they wanted poetry infused into it.
And then they wanted a particular piece that you...
Right. And so I was like I was completely like flattered, you know what I'm saying, humbled by it. But then something just always was like I was fighting with it. And I would have conversations with Crystal about it. And she'd be like, yo, like why don't I want to allow my work to be in other people's shows and things of that nature? Because, I mean, let's face it, if Tyler Perry called me right now and said, yo, look, I got this movie and I want to I'm going to be like, yeah, bet. But I'm like, why don't I want to do that right now? Like, I want to share my art. I want to share my work. Why don't I put my full poems up on Instagram? You know what I'm saying? I've done it maybe a couple times. Now I'll put some snippets up.
Right.
But me not consciously knowing what I was doing, but I'm so glad I just decided against those things so many times. And I was just like, nah, you know what I'm saying? Like, just for the brand, I was just like, yo, just for the brand, I want to, inspire. But as you said, like, it allows people to, it allows me to have people pay attention to what I want them to pay attention to when I want them to pay attention to it, where I want them to pay attention to it.
And that's so important for us.
Man, but I ain't even know though.
But you
Like,
did though, cause you did it. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel like that's the thing that's so crazy, right? So like, what I've noticed is like, a part of us humans, and I mean, I'm gonna speak specifically to the creators of this world. A lot of us want to. We're we're so we're so married to the idea that we're the ones doing it, that we want to control everything. I think a lot of the stuff that we're doing, we're really just again answering to our nature in most places, and you know, I believe in God. I think God's in control of the nature, and I think that when you allow yourself to open up to a, I'm not even gonna say God. I'm gonna say when you open yourself up to it, because it works on the other side too.
yeah,
If you open yourself to a cause that's bigger than yourself, then usually that cause gains a life of its own. Sometimes without you really knowing that you're being used by that cause, and now you're at the whim of the intelligence of the cause that you're
wow,
working for. And and I can tell by your ethic and the way that you work, man. Like what you work for is bigger than what you're creating. So the the creation is going to be a fraction of the creator, right? What you're focused on is something bigger, because you can idealize it, you can see it. So because of that, if the idea is big, the creation is going to be
right,
either as big, less than, or as big as the cause, right? And so then you make actions to make sure the cause happens, but you wasn't going to know what was needed to get there,
right.
unless you was focused on the.
I'm following you.
Yeah, but I'm sorry, and
I'm following you.
Yeah, you feel me? The best way I can, I'm a visual person, and it's the best way that I can kind of communicate myself.
Right.
I just got done telling a friend of mine this the other day, and this is the best way I can explain it. And this is probably like the biggest moment for me. And this is not me. This is an observation that taught me something.
Okay.
Which is, if you have an object, and this is true in reality, you can observe this with any object. If you have an object, which we're going to call the neutral,
Okay.
and then you have a light somewhere in the room of that object, what you'll always notice is the darkest part in the composition will be behind the object that's facing
The light. Right.
In other words, if I'm looking here, I can't notice what's back here.
Right.
If we calling this darkness haters or negativity or anything, it's behind
you.
As long as I'm facing
The
the
light.
light, the goal, the objective,
The vision, all that, yeah.
And whatever you put in those metaphors of the spectrum or whatever light and darkness is.
Right.
If you're facing
Where you supposed to be
you're
facing, your sun,
exactly.
then you good to go.
You're not gonna even, and it's the thing that's so crazy is a shadow only grows to how big the object that is in front of the light is. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? You only see great darkness when you are a huge object. That's why these stars getting they either like doing really big things or really bad things, because the object they grew in size, their mass got so big, so now when they face light, they decide to turn back. They're like, whoa, bruh, there's so much darkness over here. But that's because you were supposed to stay focused there, you know what I'm saying?
Bro, I might charge for this podcast episode, bro. I'm like, yo, people might have to pay for this one. I'm talking about some good money too.
For sure, man.
Some inspired VIP ticket money.
No, there's a lot of value in this conversation, man. I'm learning a lot, man.
Damn, that's crazy.
I'm about to say, man, you put me on, man. Like the stuff that you saying, but the stuff that I learned through art, because there is no like words attached to it. It opens up interpretations, and a lot of things become a lot of metaphor for me because I think poetically. So like.
Right.
When you have anything on a binary spectrum, you can put it you can assign meaning to these things. So like when you were telling me stuff, you just started giving me meanings to something that I've thought about. I always look at the thing like that, but then when you start saying, well, because you know, I feel like it wasn't me that thought about it, and I'm like, oh, dang,
that's what.
And then I learned that lesson through what you said in the image that I held in my head. I hold those images as lessons, but your words fill in those spots. So, but somebody else might come to me and bring up another subject, hold that same image, and those words plug in.
Right.
And so, like, I'm learning this as we talk. It's just,
man. I wonder, and now you got me thinking, because as two artists, right? Like, so I talk to a lot of different artists. But when I start thinking about, and I'll bring this around, when I start thinking about artists that talk to artists, typically, poets talk to poets, singers talk to singers, you know, visual artists talk to visual artists, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm wondering if part of the solution of the light is more artists that are from different genres speaking with each other.
bro, I think you might be on to something. I've never, made that connection.
I've never even thought about that connection until just now when you said that you hold, you know, these things in your head visually, and then I say something, and then you're able to attach it, and then you regurgitate that to me, and then that makes me think of something in a whole other light.
That's crazy, man. Yeah,
so now I'm like, dang, do I need to figure out how to set up something, I don't know, whether it's a networking group, whether it's a whatever, where different types of artists are having connections and conversations with each other to then build more light, bigger lights, bigger suns, to then shed more on the neutral.
Bro, that's powerful. That's very powerful.
Dang, that's crazy.
That's very powerful because if just literally thinking about the image of what that would look like. If any reason as to other to like just make sure that we're challenging each other's content to grow in its influence of positivity.
Right.
And I just to put this out there, man. I don't feel like. I feel like I hate using certain words that have a vibe attached to them or a connotation already assigned to them, such as like light and positivity. They're good for our conversation. However, because there's ideas attached to them, a lot of people feel like there's no realness attached to the light. Like I've noticed. Oh man, I'm gonna say it because we hear.
Right.
Then I'm a musician, so this is a little bit of a weird thing to say because I don't want to like shoot myself in the foot. But okay, this is how I'm gonna say it. So the light is not influencing the neutral because we do not cater to the nature of human beings. Because we deny the nature of human beings, it makes the neutral feel like we don't understand them or that we're asking them to do something outside of their means. Okay? So when I say light, I am not saying a cookie cutter, clean, or a censored version of the light.
Yeah.
That's not even really
the light. Right.
Like that's commercial. That's how you sell it. You feel me?
Right.
I'm talking about the raw, like the light that hurts people. Like, you know what I'm saying? The sun only adds power to Earth at a distance. Like, it's so powerful. That light is so powerful that if we were too close, burn up. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think that it's.
Wow.
You know, I feel like the most powerful lights are that potent, and everything that's in that universe or that solar system is going to find a place to exist amongst that sun's light. When we try to provide a light for the subject that needs it, then we're adjusting ourselves to the whim of the planet that our sun serves, when that now makes that planet the center of the universe versus the sun being the center of the
Right.
universe. We just gotta shine off of what we shine off of, and everybody and thing and place that we attract, it's gonna be based off of what we give them.
Yo, it's crazy. I just was telling somebody earlier. Um, I was telling the story, and if you saw the last podcast, then whatever. um, my homeboy said to me, he was like, "Yo, you don't have to worry about making a show that's better than your next show." He was like, "All you have to do is decide what you should be giving to people and give it to them." And that's exactly what you're just saying. Like, yo, like, we gotta give what we supposed to give, and then the people who are also giving what they're supposed to give, we find a space that makes sense for us, where we can live within that universe, if you will,
Right.
and get what we need from it.
That's how, I feel like I feel this way about our meeting. You know what I'm saying? Like, you
Yeah.
know, you have a huge movement going on. And I can tell by the impact of people that you brought in on the podcast since we have conversations. I know some of them personally, and I know what they're doing. So it's
Right.
like we're already in the same universe then, right? You know what I'm saying? So
Yep.
we're already, you know, we already affecting. I won't say we're affecting the same people, but we're affecting people similarly to the point where we're attracting the same company.
Right.
That's how it works. You
Yep.
know what I'm saying? Like, and I feel like that system is even bigger than our knowledge of it. I think what we're doing now is bringing kind of self-awareness to the community
Right.
of this happening. For people who don't know, I'm not trying to discredit anybody who also ain't put onto this knowledge that we're talking about. 'Cause
Yeah.
we're just talking about truths, and truths are timeless. So you know, we're discovering.
Shit, we putting ourselves on right now.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
Because I didn't know this stuff before this conversation.
Right.
You know, this conversation is
Crazy.
giving us
Right.
the juice for real.
Man. It's crazy just to think about the things we never thought about,
Yeah.
and the things that we never thought about a certain way,
Yeah.
until you actually experience a conversation, a movie, a moment, a picture, a poem, whatever, in a certain instant, and then it changes your perspective, or at least gives you a perspective that you never had before.
You know, it's funny. Somebody just put me onto somebody shared this book in their story, and it was called I forgot what it's called. It's a Bell Hooks book, and it talks about like masculinity. Whatever. Just say I didn't read the book.
Right.
I heard about the book, and before I read the book, I like to kind of get an idea because I don't want to
Waste your time.
waste my
Yeah.
time or money on it. So I was listening to like a discussion about people who read the book, and it introduced me to a couple perspectives on like feminism and patriarchal masculinity and how that affects men in society and how it affects women in society. And it challenged my own beliefs on masculinity and what it was. However, I'm pretty self-aware, so I'm aware of what I consider masculinity, and it didn't change my opinion. However, it allowed me to think about my opinion in a way that I can now communicate it to somebody who has a different opinion. Because their perspective challenged mine, and it made me like, well, do I feel that way? And as I accepted and I kept an open mind to allow what they were saying to filter through my mind, I started finding myself like, oh, that's an interesting perspective, but I don't 100% agree. I actually still feel the way that I feel.
Right.
Just now I know why I feel that way more because I can compare it to more points and perspectives
Yeah.
than my own. But I had to accept the information,
Right.
process it first before I could deepen my own
Right.
perspective. It wasn't like it didn't change my mind. It didn't do anything, but it did allow me to be like, you know what? I never thought about it like that. Let me ask myself these questions.
But so many people don't even want to put themselves in a position to have whatever they think challenged.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm like, man, like, and I get it because I used to be like that. But I didn't know any better. You know what I'm saying? Like, once I knew better, it was like, yo, I do need it. Like I even make myself, I put myself in position to myself in position to experience certain things that are outside of my norm. Like for instance, like I'm straight man. I'm not bi, not curious, no none of that. Right? More power to whoever is.
Right.
I force myself to watch the movie Moonlight.
I'm actually unaware. I'm haven't been plugged into certain
So
cinematics.
it's about a black guy,
Mm-hmm.
his relationship with his mother, and I want to say I've only seen it once. I want to say it's another guy in the community that he knows, but it's also really, really about his internal battle with him being gay.
Oh, okay.
Right? And so for me, just as who I am, where I come from, how I grew up, like if I saw a gay guy that was, and I'm gonna use, flamboyant,
Right.
I'm gonna use the term flamboyant, for lack of a better term, then okay, yeah, like I don't have no qualms with watching that or understanding how that flows, right? But in the movie, it's a guy that looks like me. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you looked at him, you wouldn't assume from a societal eye that he's gay,
Right.
right? And then he's also his interest in the movie is also a guy who
like
looks
that.
like me, right? And so I'm like, man, I had, because I always said I wasn't watching Brokeback Mountain, right?
I heard a lot of
Yeah,
things about that.
but then I think I was more open to watching Moonlight after a while because it was a black story.
I got you.
So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna watch Moonlight, and I was watching the movie, and I'm like, I'm uncomfortable. But I was like, instead of me turning off, let me just be uncomfortable and go through this journey of what at the end of the day is just another human being.
Yeah, that's real. I mean, yeah, that's real. I think. Do you think? I ask you this question. Do you think a lot of people's homophobia or transphobia comes from not a strong basis in their own
Yeah, most definitely. Because I feel like there's, and this is just based off of conversations that I've had with people. I'll preface with that. I think there's a lot of people who have homophobia or transphobia because they're actually like they're partially gay or maybe want to be trans or deal with someone who is trans, right? And so then I think the other piece to it is ignorance. Right. It is environment where because I know where I grew up at, like I never even knew what the word trans was. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't until I started getting older that I even knew like, oh, that's what people were talking about when they used this derogatory term. You know what I'm saying?
Same.
Right. So I think that's where a lot of it comes from. And so for me, I know when I remember when I started getting introduced to more trans women, my friend who is a trans woman, she would try to mitigate the situation first. Like she'd be like, "Hey, look, so it's only gonna be, some of my sisters there, da da da," and I'm like, "Yo, I'm good." And then she's trying to tell them like, "Hey, look, you know what I'm saying? Don't y'all say nothing crazy, da da da." She's like, "What do you want?" And I'm like, "Yo, like
catering to you."
Right, but I had to tell. I'm like, I'm good because it don't matter who who I'm out eating dinner with.
Yeah.
I don't care if such and such walks by, cause I'm who I am,
Right.
and I know who I am. And if they go and be like, "Oh, SP out here sleeping with trans women," like, yo, that's them. Like that ain't got nothing to do with me, and it shouldn't have nothing to do with you. But I wasn't always like that. Not even close. So yeah, to answer your question, I think it does have a lot to do with them being unaware of self to the point where they feel completely comfortable with whoever they are, whatever they like, where it keeps them from interacting with, getting to know, be with, understand whatever someone that's of a different sexuality, someone's a different race, someone's different whatever. So yeah, I do think that, and I think it's unfortunate, and I also feel like it's unfortunate that it took me as long as I did in my life to even get to that point. And I'm just like, man, like had I known certain things way before, I'd have been good. Like, cause I've always been self-aware of who I am, just in anything. Like, I knew when I was growing up, I could hoop. I ain't really get a jumper till 11th grade. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not about to be at the 3-point line just, shooting 4 or 5 3-pointers a game.
Yeah, exactly.
I knew I could rebound. I knew I could pass.
Yeah.
I knew, you know what I'm saying? Like I had a nasty reverse layup. You know what I'm saying? There was different things I could do. So I was always self-aware of what I could do. But there's certain things that I just didn't understand about the world and about how people operated. And I didn't know that other people weren't self-aware until I got older.
That's big. I'll say, just to kind of like play off what you were saying, like I kind of feel like for me, um, I'll say like I'll put it like this. I wouldn't say that I was homophobic or transphobic, really. Maybe I was, but I feel like it was more based off of exposure than anything. Because, like you said earlier, like I didn't know many people that identified that, and if they did, it was
hidden.
It was hidden, and for a good reason. Because
right.
I remember using derogatory terms that could be disrespectful to both communities in times where I didn't realize how
disrespectful that was.
It actually was.
Yeah.
I was just kind of saying it because everybody was
saying else said it,
and it made people laugh when I said it. So, kind of more of like seeking acceptance, I guess.
Yeah.
By using words that other people use, and even that's even why I started cursing for real. I used to try to. I was telling my I was telling my homie this, and I told my girl this too, because I like just being transparent with my like past and stuff. I was trying to impress a girl when I started cursing. I was very religious growing up, and I didn't like the idea of like displeasing God, so I didn't want to like say anything like negative or curse or anything, right? Which I don't even know if that's really a thing, because like the words that we're using, it just depends on context. I'm mature enough now to kind of know that, but at the time, right, I just know what people are telling me and what to say, so I didn't like cursing. But my best friend at the time was like, he was killing it with the girls, bro. Like, every time he would like,
and that vocabulary was on 10.
Yeah, it wasn't really on 10. He was just using what SpongeBob would call the sentence enhancers. You know?
Right, that's what I'm talking about. That vocabulary.
Yeah. So he was just using words that was like that made jokes funnier and stuff. And I was like, I want that type of reaction from her. You know what I'm saying? So like, I'm gonna use these words to make to pique her interest in me. Yeah. So I mean, but I say that to say like that happens frequently, and I think that's another reason why this momentum that we need to build as the light is more important. It needs to be cool to be
right.
To bless things, to bring in, usher in positivity and the promotion of growth and personal development. Those things need to be cool. Like that needs to be the thing that people want to do. And not feel like it's a chore. Yeah. As long as it feels like a chore,
less people are gonna do it.
Yeah.
Less people are gonna do it. That's crazy. Man, we got so much to learn, so much to teach, so much to ingest, digest. It's just wild, man. And I'm sitting here looking at it like 15 years ago, I was 25. 15 years from now, I'll be pushing 60.
Dang.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's like, man, how much can I pack into my life? How much learning can I pack into my life? How much teaching? How many conversations can I pack into my life? And I remember at one point in time, it was all about how much money can I get in my life. And I still think about the bread. I'm going to get the bread, whatever, regardless. But now I do a whole lot more things. I do a whole lot of things, or many more things now, that aren't attached to a dollar bill than I used to. And a lot of those things got pushed out of my life. Like I ain't even had no control over it. Like
Would you mind providing an example? I'm just curious in like what
so
capacity.
so for instance, like I normally try to keep 3 to 5 like income streams, no matter how big or small, whatever. So one of my biggest income streams was Uber and Lyft, and I was like, this is the one that I can keep until I'm like completely full time artist. Like all I do is just self employed type things, whatever. And I was killing it with Uber and Lyft. You know what I'm saying? And it allowed me the flexibility to do what I needed to do outside of that. And earlier this year, like not too long after, I'm like, yo, look, we're gonna have I'm gonna put on a free show. They kicked me off the platform, both platforms, and it wasn't even for anything I had did. Now it was for a ticket that I had in 2015 and a ticket that I had in 2018, which they already knew about prior to me because I wasn't even driving Uber and Lyft in 2015. And so whatever shift they had in their company or the shift they had in the world with COVID and a lot of people not driving and things of that nature, I don't know. I kind of have a breadcrumb a little bit to what I think happened. But anyway, I had no control over it. And I begged and I pleaded and I sent emails and I was on the phone for 2 months. And because I'm like, yo, like this is a lot of my money and a lot of this is how I'm going to put on this free show, right? So I wound up, that gets taken away from me. If I was still driving Uber and Lyft right now, I'd be driving Uber or Lyft right now.
I see your point. Big, yeah, that's big, man.
I never would have started a podcast if I was driving Uber and Lyft because I was driving 60, 70, 75 hours a week. And it was funny because people thought I did nothing. And I would pop up at the open mic and they're like, man, I want to be. I'm like, yo, like I just worked for 13 hours before I came here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I've been up since 5 o'clock this morning to get in 12 hours, get something to eat, and then get the open mic by 8. You know what I'm saying? So y'all don't even see the background. But if I was still doing that, there was no way I would have time to sit here and shoot 4 podcast episodes in a day.
That's real, man.
And then we would have never had this conversation. We'd have never met, probably.
Yeah, probably. And being that we're so connected to all of the like same people,
right?
It's still critical to think that like still the smallest action could have kept the
smallest
conversation from happening and all the nuggets that came from this conversation. So like I gotta equate the knowledge that I have now not only to us meeting but also to the fact that you did get kicked off those platforms.
Right.
And it's weird to think we talked about earlier, we kinda talked about this prior to the podcast about like all the actions necessary to get to these moments. I created a album called Serendipity, and when I learned about the word serendipity, that's when I felt like it would be an appropriate topic to talk about what you just mentioned, which is like every decision we've ever decided to do led us to the moment we're in right now, and that can either mean like that can either be a good thing for you
or it can be a bad
thing for you, but it's a cause and effect type thing.
Everything, bro. All of it. Like, and you literally can track it. Like, we was tracking, and I was like, yo, this is how I met you.
Yeah, that's
you know
crazy.
What I'm saying? Like, starting with when I decided I'm going to have a podcast, this is how I met you. And what I didn't tell you is the first place I was actually trying to shoot at, I had been trying to get on there for like 2 months, and they wouldn't, nothing was happening, which then spurred me to... And then boom, 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 boom. Here we are.
Bro, so I love it. I'm gonna say this because I have never actually said this on a platform bigger than like a conversation one-on-one. So I think this is really cool. A little scary, a little vulnerable because like a part of the information that we're sharing is so powerful that it makes me not want to share it.
Right.
That's a problem too. But I always tell people that start to have like conversations of this caliber with me that I always look at communication with God in 3 things, right? People, places, and things. I've always noticed like whenever I pray for or about or something, the next key to the answer of that door is either presented to a place, through a thing, or through a person.
Right.
Right? So it's like, I want to be an artist. Okay, I made that decision. Talk to God about it, or put it into a universe. However you communicate with the higher power. It's not, I'm not trying to. Universal truths are true, however you interpret.
Right.
You know, the power that we're speaking about. But say I want to be an artist. Boom. Now it's out in the universe, and I'm walking around. Now there's more ways. Now there's three, and again, there's three ways that I can get to that thing. And once you get more specific, it still works the same way. I want to be an artist. Okay, well, what's the first steps? Well, I got to do the things that artists do. What is that? Well, so now you got to learn how to paint or draw or whatever.
Right, because you got to be an artist.
You know what I'm saying? You're not going to just say you're an artist and don't have nothing to prove for it. So now I got to do that thing. Now that I did that thing, I'm going to go put that thing in a place where artists are at an art show, or say it's poetry, it's open mic or spoken word. So now I do a thing, and now I do the thing, I go to the place. And when I go to the place, I'm going to find other people who do that thing, and then the communication of the efforts needed for me to get to that destination was through three instruments: people, places, and things.
Every time.
You know what I'm saying? What I've noticed now, though, is that through the internet, unless you're intentional, we kind of skew that connection that would have not been natural with things that are like first presented with ego in most cases. I feel like most people's Instagram, and could be positive or negative, but most people's Instagram is a reflection of the things that they've done, accomplished, and seen. Right. Right. So I'll bring up our communication to each other, how we first met, like yesterday. Right. Right. And when I first met you, I wasn't aware of the things you accomplished. My only gauge of who you were as a person was how we interacted with each other. Yeah. Now, based off of what I've collected from my other interactions with people and at different places doing different things, I could have assumed that you were successful based off of the qualities that you carry, the traits that you carry. But it wasn't based off of what you done first. It was based off of
the interaction.
Our interaction. And it was genuine out the strength. We started expanding more on what we've done, what we do, or whatever. And I was like, dang, that's crazy. Like, you know what I'm saying?
We would have never known. I'd have never known that you could, you know what I'm saying, draw the way you do, or rap the way you do. You know what I'm saying? It definitely goes both ways. It definitely goes both ways, and it's just dope, man. Like, life is scary because we don't know. Yeah. But life is also good because we don't know.
Do you really want to know everything?
Man.
Like, and that's what I was going to ask you, because he said, like, how many more conversations do I have, or how many more information can I pack?
Right, do I really want to know?
Like, do we? Because, like, at one point, and I'm going to speak from my perspective, because I've been raised to be and think like a leader, and I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but my dad's in the military, and so whenever he would go to different locations and he wasn't home, my parents would always, and again, I was the only child for 6 years, and then when my sister came, she was 6 years younger than me now. Right. So like, when my dad would leave the home, they would call me the man of the house. Now, I don't know if that's a good type of weight to put on somebody that thinks as deeply as I think about stuff. Right. Because I'm still a kid thinking and being called
the man of the house.
So I'm starting to assume traits and responsibilities that were associated to my father, and to think that I need to carry those traits as a child. It's low-key not healthy, but
a little toxic.
Yeah, it's not really healthy. But I will say that for me, it was partly beneficial because it made me ask myself questions that I probably wouldn't have been asked by anybody else. Right. And I feel like in asking those questions and being put in a position to be exposed to these things, I liked the idea of controlling or learning information because it helped me be a better leader. But once I started like learning a bunch of stuff, I was like, this is way too much responsibility to like hold in leadership, because now like like you said, it's different if somebody like a problem arises and then you have to respond to the problem and learn on the job
Right.
versus when you are aware of all the problems that could possibly come and now you got to decide where you want to go.
Right, the best course of action.
Yeah,
Right.
like that's a hard decision to make,
Yeah.
especially when you have other people that you're responsible for. And so like, you know, I don't know if I want to learn more information. I like to experience more information and like have it come through like me walking on my purpose, but I don't know if I really want to accumulate a bunch of knowledge if it's not associated to my specific walk.
Right.
You know, unless it just comes in conversation with a person and it just so
Right.
happens that I got it. You know what I'm saying? But,
And see, it's crazy because you say that, and I get it, but I can't even, I can't get away from it because accumulating any information about any walk is specific to my walk because I write.
yeah, so it's dope for you.
It's not dope because
No,
it is, but it's not because I now I'm addicted to it.
I got you. You're supposed to be addicted to your passions, bro. And I think it's cool that you. I think it's very responsible that you think about those things. And and honestly, you're inspiring me to. You kind of challenge my thought process on that, and I've been holding it for a long time. But there's a quality about you that I've been observing that I admire because I feel like I'm missing that quality, and I feel like I used to have that quality, which was, and we kind of talked about this yesterday, which is I feel like I was more of a people person when I wasn't. I feel like I was more of a people person when I was gaining my information from people and not from items that I have on my like the phone keeps a lot of conversations from being had that I would normally ask somebody in a field
Right.
to do. If I have a question now, like,
Just look it up.
and it keeps the
Yeah.
knowledge exchange from happening because I could find something online versus talk to somebody who really do it, and then the person who really do it in person that I know might be going to some knowledge that they got from another person who's not on the internet,
Right.
and I would have missed that whole.
And it's crazy because on one hand, you know, Gary Vee says ask Google. Like Google's your friend, Google's your mother, because that's quick, right? You're not using or wasting, depending on how you look at it, time to hit somebody else up and then wind up having a 30-minute conversation to get your answer, but then you have all this other stuff that's there as well when you could have got that answer in a minute by looking it up on Google. So then it's just weighing out when's the right time to ask Google and then when's the right time to sit down and talk to somebody for 30 minutes, 2 hours. Shit, I've sat down and talked with people for 8 hours
Yeah,
before.
if it's a good conversation.
Right, because then, I mean, but then I look and I'm like, damn, like that's a whole shift. Like my whole day is gone. But it's like, is this what I was supposed to be doing with my day?
And that is the craziest part, man. I wish I had an answer because that shit happens to me all the time. If I get lost in a conversation that I feel like, I look at life low-key like a video game, and it might just be because of like the generation I belong to. I feel like games were used to pacify me growing up.
Yeah.
And like, so like low-key, it's kind of, I'm not going to disrespect my parents and say this, but in a way that I was kind of raised by like the entertainment I chose to indulge in, which luckily I actually really appreciate, like conscious entertainment.
Right.
So, you know,
So it was feeding you too, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I'm sorry because you're saying a lot. So I want to make sure that I'm staying.
Oh no, you good.
On topic. But I feel like the information that was given to me or the stuff that I used to pacify me at that time not only shaped me, but like I feel like we're now moving in a position where we're not engaging enough with people. Like, okay, so similar to what you were saying, right? Similar to what you were saying, like you get the information faster. Yeah, you get the information faster, but it's like that African proverb, like you want to go somewhere fast, you go alone. If you want to go somewhere far, you go with people.
Yeah.
You know, I think there is a space between like getting information. Like it's cool having a phone because like it's like a superpower. Like we don't need encyclopedias no more.
Right.
You know, education system is like really looking completely different than it's used to. But how much time do we spend in our own heads, you know, and how healthy is that? Like, especially if you don't have a healthy mindset already,
Right.
you know.
And you spending that time with yourself.
Yeah, like that could be a downward spiral. I got introduced in that same discussion about that book I was saying. I got introduced to this idea in their midst of their discussion, which is why I like to hear the discussion.
Right.
You know? Because especially if there's nobody else that was gonna read the book with me,
Yeah.
and I don't have nobody to
To
talk
talk
to
to about it. Yeah.
at least I have like human opinions to bounce my opinion off of.
Right.
And but he has brought something up about like there's a theory, and I wish I was better at like quoting stuff. I be getting the generalization of stuff, and I'll let it sit in my head. But he has said that some people feel that they learn most through or about themselves through their relationships with other people, and I was like, boom! I was like, oh my goodness! Like, not only do most people do that, but that's been a survival thing for humanity as long as we've been humans, which is why we build cities and societies. So
right.
as soon as we stop,
the community,
you know, it's a downward spiral because
that's crazy.
We can't bounce our thoughts and ideas off
no
each
one
other.
man is an island.
You know? Oh, what?
Said no one man is an island. I forget where I heard it at.
I don't think I've heard that before.
Yeah, I heard it somewhere. I have no idea who said it. I don't know whether it was a rap song, a book, or a pastor. I don't know. But, somebody said it.
but the words get you. But so, bro, you see what I'm saying? You said, yes, is our art enough? Today, in this conversation that we had alone, right? We could ask, was the reaction to Jay-Z's Keep One Eye Open Like CBS worth it for what he was trying to put out into the world based off of how many people that listened to his album when it dropped changed their life? Or we can judge it based off of the fact that lives in your brain and now lives in my brain through a conversation. Like, he wasn't involved with our conversation, but his words were. Right. Yours probably did the same thing. You'd probably be surprised. You're probably not surprised because you're successful, man. So you know, it's not a surprise, but I would say that, you know, it is very
it's surreal.
Yeah.
Is what it is. I know after this last show that we just had, I did a piece called White Conscience. And I showed you Black Conscience last night, and I told you kind of the premise of what White Conscience was. And just for the audience, I almost forgot we were on camera. Just for the audience, like, the premise of White Conscience is there was a black lady who was whipping a white man, and so then he's being berated by a black man. And so then the white poet, Colin Watson, he then interrupts Lee Chapman, who's the black male poet, and starts kind of explaining himself like, yo, I'm an ally and I'm not my forefathers, and you know, like, your plight is actually my plight in a way. Like, the same, I think that there's a line in the poem I had where it said, the same hands that broke you made me. And so he's battling with this demon, like, man. And so I remember the next day, we had some friends, well, I ain't know a couple of girls, and then my cousin and her friend that came from Maryland, my brother, Crystal, we all at the house, we chilling talking, and somebody brought up White Conscience, and then one girl was like, yeah, man, I ain't really, I mean, okay, but I ain't really fucking with that piece like that. And I was like, well, you know, why not? You know what I'm saying? We artists, like, yo, why not? And she was like, yo, like, white people done did us dirty, like, forget that, you know what I'm saying, da-da-da. So then I had the opportunity to sit in the living room with her, and I showed her Black Conscience. I showed her Stranger Fruit, and I walked her through why I wrote each one of those pieces and why that piece wound up being in that particular show. And, you know, that being 3 different pieces that talked about societal things, you know, black versus white, black versus black, and then white versus black, in a sense, right? I'm like, I wanted to cover all those topics based off of thoughts that I had within me and see who felt the same or who thought different or whatever the case may be. So after she watched all those and we had the conversation for like 2 hours, she was then like, okay, like I get it. It still don't change my opinion,
Right.
but I understand now more where you were coming from. And if I had never had that piece, then she never sees the other two. We never had this conversation. And then who knows where that leads to down the road for her, for me, for somebody else that was listening or whatever. And so to your point, you know, Jay-Z having just that line in a song 1996.
Right. Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? We in 2021.
Time travel.
And it's like, it still lives with me. Like one of the most impactful things for me as an artist listening to music, Jay-Z said, 2001, I'll never forget it, 9/11, because that's when he dropped the Blueprint. And in one of the songs, he's like, yo, do you fools listen to music or do you just skim through it? I literally was walking on campus with my headphones on and I stopped. And at the time I had a CD player and I took it back and I'm like, I've been skimming through music. I don't want to be a fool. You know what I'm saying? Jay-Z ain't my dad. He ain't my teacher or nothing. But I was like, yo. And from that day on, I never listened to music the same way again. Like, for instance, like I've been wanting to listen to more of your songs, right? I've been super busy since last night when I found out you even had music. I won't listen to somebody's stuff, whether it's music, poetry, whatever, until I'm in a still place where I can focus in on what I'm listening to, at least for the first time. Then I can, you know, after that, I can do whatever. But I at least want to have that first listening be uninterrupted, no distractions, no nothing, because now I'm listening like, what's there?
Right.
What can I get? What is this light trying to give me?
Bro.
And how can I live within that galaxy of what this person has made?
Yeah, man. Golly, man. So just to kind of plug him, because this is my boy.
Okay.
His name is, on Instagram is Lewis the Rapper. Lewis dot everywhere else. He's another artist out of Wilmington.
Okay.
I just did a show this weekend over there. That, you know, I got good standing with them. Those are my friends, my people out there. So he got me involved. But we had a conversation after that show, and I was, you know, we was talking about that. We was like, bro, like, it's wild to think that like the consumer is not intentionally like challenging themselves to listen. Like I you know, like I hate like even if I don't like an album, if I first or I think and that's why that's the craziest part. If I think I don't like an album the first time I listen to it,
I listen to it again.
Yeah, I still gotta listen to it
just to see.
Yeah, first of all, I gotta listen to it all the way through. I know people that skip songs just based off of I don't like the way the drums hit. Boom.
Right.
Like maybe he did that on purpose. Like maybe you're not allowing yourself to challenge creative ideas. I know we was talking about something earlier you mentioned, and I only bring this up because it was in the same conversation I was having with him about the impact of mumble rap and like what that means. And like it's interesting because mumble rap has a negative association to it, and for its influence, I can kind of understand why, especially from anybody who is for anybody whose profession or art style is based predominantly on words,
right,
such as lyrical rappers or poets and stuff. However, I don't think it's completely negative, except for the fact that it was associated with negative images. Because I started thinking about things in association of like nothing repeats itself, history repeats. I mean, everything repeats itself. History repeats itself. That's how it goes. J. Cole.
Yep.
And so whenever I start seeing something pop up in current time, I try to find
it in history.
So that way I can get ahead of the curve. That's how I get ahead of the curve, is by like, this is happening now. Okay, if this is happening now, when society was at a similar time point, what followed up, so I know what's going to come after.
That's Warren Buffett. That's all he does with stocks.
Yeah, that's crazy. It does work the same way. Yeah, so it works the same way. So I'll be trying to get ahead of music trends, ahead of art trends. So whenever I see something happening,
right,
I kind of try to go back a couple years and what happened. I think, the closest innovation, especially in the black community, towards mumble rap has to be like scat music, jazz. You know, Louis Armstrong, all these
Wow, I
artists.
never even made that comparison.
You know, because I mean, you didn't know what they were saying. You know, but you felt it. Now, I would say that I wouldn't necessarily classify as negative because of the imagery associated. That's why I was saying like
Right.
I don't think that music without words is like negative. I think it's a form of expression. Um, but
Damn.
it depends on how you translate that
Right.
expression. You know what I'm saying? And I think mumble rap imagery and the little words that they do use produce imagery that is negative. But sometimes sounds can express more than words can. You
It's
know?
true. I never even thought about scatting in the sense of it as a parallel to mumble rap in a sense.
And it's
Like for real, for real.
in its patterns,
Right.
like in its musical patterns, because it's like the biggest lesson I ever learned is that, or the best way I can use it, I had the same this particular topic. I had a conversation with Lewis. Shout out Lewis guy, and he had said the same thing, and she said I never thought about it in that way, but I had introduced the reason why that concept even got to me was in school while studying art history. They made me aware of the fact that the consumer breathes, inhales, and exhale what they like. What happens is, as consumers, first we really pay attention to things we can't get, right? So like the exclusive stuff becomes very valuable and popular until people can't get it. So then the accessible thing becomes popular until everybody can get it. And so then the exclusive thing becomes popular, and it happens. It breathes. It's like, you know.
Wow.
So we're gonna see an increase in mumble rap, but as we see an increase in mumble rap, as you see right now, people. I'm tired of mumble rap. I'm losing. I don't have the over the opinion I'm hearing about mumble rap now in the general public is I'm not getting anything from my soul. It's not helping me grow.
Right.
Okay, of course it wasn't. We knew that.
In the beginning.
We
right.
knew that from the beginning. That's why I like. Okay, what's the interest in this?
Right.
It just sounds good. It feels good. Okay, well that's valid interest.
Yeah.
Valid until you don't have the soul and the stuff that you need to grow. And now those artists are going to become popular until it's super hard to be like them.
Right.
So now we want new though. We want something that I never
all
heard
the
before.
time.
Not to call mumble rap off brand or anything
Right,
that's
right.
but then the more accessible or easy your duplicated style starts becoming popular.
Right.
Until it's not, and then you know, and I feel like that's what made it easier for me to make the association of scat.
That's crazy. I never thought about that, bro.
The art worlds, and they really, that's why you're right. We need to, because they really actually, in the understanding of one will help
The other.
the understanding of another one.
And vice versa. That's crazy. Man, I really feel like we could just sit here all night.
Yeah.
We could sit here all night and just talk and talk and talk. But I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna wrap this one up. This is one for the books.
Yeah,
so.
it's beautiful, man. This conversation was dope. I didn't know it was gonna be this powerful. Not because
Me either though.
You know, like
I knew it was gonna be good, but like the word you use, powerful. You know what I'm saying? Like I think for both of us and whoever is on that wave that winds up seeing it, I think it'll be just as, if not even more powerful for them as well.
I agree.
So in the beginning, I asked you, who do you think you are? And so as we wrap up, I'm gonna ask you, who do you think you will be?
Oh dang, it's interesting. Compared to the question that you asked me in the beginning, I would assume, or at least by paper, that the answer would be the same. Just because I think they're directly related to each other. However, my immediate reaction to you asking me that question wanted me to give a different answer. And I don't think a different answer is wrong. Because I think being an artist is the instrument for who I will become. And I think who I will become, or what I will become, is going to be past the instrument used to create that character. I don't know if I can put a word on that, but I think what I will become is an inspiration.
Mm.
Yeah, that's the best way that I can. At least I hope to.
Right.
You can't guarantee that. I've been told that I've done that, so I have I have some evidence to kind of point that I'm going in that direction. Hopefully, if I, I will intentionally stay dedicated to a path that leads to motivation and inspiration. And as long as I take every day at a time at trying to be that, I think that it is inevitable. If first the foundation is to be disciplined in it, that I will be an inspiration, and that's all I really hope to be.
That. This is good, bro. I appreciate you, man. I'm glad things moved the way they did in order for this to happen for us to sit down and connect in this particular way. So yo, that's what's up, bro.
Man, thank you for having me on the podcast, man. Like, yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah, this is powerful. Honestly, like, this conversation, bro, and for anybody out here in the audience that want to have a conversation about any stuff that we talked about, because it's going to require a lot more.
Right. Listen, we could do 5 parts of this, joint.
Yeah. I don't even really think we really answered anything as much as we, like, introduced.
Just explored it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's beautiful, though.
Yeah.
Because now you got me, man. I think what the meat of this conversation is going to carry over to a lifetime worth of, like, exploration.
Indeed. All right, y'all. I am gonna put his links to his music, to his art, all that stuff down the bottom, man. Y'all make sure y'all check that out. Subscribe, and we'll see y'all next time.
Peace.
Bet. That was some good stuff, bro.